Hello, I'm Rosie. At the beginning of the year I decided to do the TBR jar challenge. The link to Catty-tastic's original video and my blog post about it are in the description. And today I'm going to talk about the challenge I had for February, the book that I chose for that challenge, and going to pick out my challenge for next month. So let's get started. My challenge for February was to read a book by an author I had not read before. For this I had a massive selection because over the past few months I've just been buying books that look interesting rather than playing it safe by authors that I'm used to or I've read books by them before so I know what to expect. This last month I've read a lot of books that are by authors that I've not read before, but the one that I read specifically for the challenge is The Girl with All the Gifts by Carey. This book I picked out because it just looked really interesting. The title just kind of makes you wonder what these gifts are, and the fact that the image is of a little girl just makes you wonder, well, what could possibly be the storyline. There's not much information on the back about what the story is. All it says is every morning Melanie waits in her cell to be collected for class. When they come for her, Sergeant Parks keeps his gun pointing at her while two of his people strap her into the wheelchair. She thinks they don't like her. She jokes that she won't bite, but they don't laugh. That instantly intrigued me. I didn't know what the story would be about. I didn't know why she had to have guns pointing at her, but it just made me want to read the book. I don't want to spoil too much about the story, but essentially you start off with the girl Melanie, who is locked in a cell, and every day these guards come to her and they take her out the cell with guns pointing at her, keeping her strapped to a wheelchair, and taking her to a classroom where she has lessons and where she's studied. Carey doesn't reveal any of the plot points immediately. It's gradually shown to you as the novel goes on, and I really enjoyed the way it was done. It was really clever and it kept you guessing, and it was such a shock when you learnt the truth. One of my favourite things about the book is that it's such an incredible twist on a really popular theme of story, and I will say it's a dystopian novel, and I just loved it. It's an amazing book. It's got science in it, it's got amazing characters, it's got an amazing story, and twists that you don't quite see coming, but are really enjoyable when you get to them. The cast of characters is very small. It's told in multiple points of view. There's only about 5 characters that you actually spend time with, but each of those characters gets their own point of view told at a point, and so you get their side of the story and their development and their characters, their backgrounds, so you know each of the characters so well that it's just done so well. You see so much of each of the characters that you start to know them so much, and you start to relate to them and feel for them what's going on in the story. And for me, I love character development and I love stories that are based around characters, and this is very much a character story. The plot, it does feature a lot and it is quite important, but the characters are what drive the story. Melanie you just fall in love with immediately. I was rooting for her from the very beginning. She's such an adorable little girl that you just want her to come out on top. And I can't pronounce the name, it's Justino, she who is Melanie's teacher. You start off with her being put on a pedestal, but gradually as the story goes on you see the flaws, and you see that in all the characters. You see their good points, you see their flaws, the consequences of the choices they make, and parts of it are really tragic and you want certain things to happen but they don't because the characters are not perfect. They have ideals that they want to keep up, and it's just amazing. Sergeant Parks in this is probably one of my favourite characters. While Melanie and Justino and I can't remember the other 2 characters' names, but the scientist and the private, while they're all quite well developed, the characters don't develop as much in the book as Sergeant Parks does. I feel his storyline is incredible, and the ending of it was just, I don't know what to say, because I don't want to spoil anything. It's a book that you want to go into without knowing too much about it. I'm so glad I didn't read any spoilers or watch any reviews or even try and Google the plot synopsis, before I read it, because if I had, it would have just ruined the story for me. It's something that you need to find out as you go along, otherwise the suspense is gone, the mystery's gone, and it just doesn't have the same effect. So if you do pick this up, don't Google any summaries or spoilers, just know that it's an amazing story, it's a dystopian, the characters are amazing. It's a really well thought out book. The way it's written is amazing. The style of writing is one that keeps you hooked throughout the entire story, and just read it. I just kind of wish the cover was slightly nicer. Like, I quite like this cover because it's intriguing. Like, you get the sense of power there that the kind of title implies, but otherwise I just don't really like it. I don't like the colour yellow that much, so it does jar with me, but it is a really interesting book, and I'm so glad I read it, and I really think you should read it too. Just read it! So yeah, that was the book that I read for February's challenge, and I just love it. Now I'm going to find out what my challenge is for March. I have my little TBR pot, or box, or whatever you want to call this, and in it I have all the challenges that I've set myself. So now I'm just going to shake it up. And pick one. Okay. Ooh, that's interesting. My challenge for March is to listen to an audiobook. I am not a huge fan of audiobooks. I don't often listen to them, partly because when I do it's in the car, so I've kind of learnt to associate them with car sickness, and I find it very hard to switch off when I'm listening to an audiobook. So for me this will be quite an interesting challenge. I don't quite know what book I'm going to get yet, and I don't really know much about audiobooks or how they work or anything like that. So if you have any recommendations for me, please let me know. Otherwise I will pick one at random and hope for the best, because I know it can depend a lot on the speaker who's actually reading the book, as well as the story itself and how well they translate to audio. Because some books I can't stand to hear read aloud, and others I like being heard, but I didn't like the way it was done in the audio tape. So this will be very interesting for me, and it also means that I can focus on actually reading all the books that I have here and then listening to the audiobook when I'm wandering around, which would be really nice. Yeah, I think this challenge will work quite well for March. Quite excited. Goodbye.